All right. Hello.
Good morning. We were debating if we look at each other or at the screen.
It feels a little intimate.
Yeah,
It feels a little intimate to go this way, but
yeah.
I'm still going to because it's going to be weird to talk to you in this direction.
Well, we're not talking to each other. We're talking to each other and them, technically.
Yes,
Them.
them.
The
So,
audience.
welcome for those of you with us, for those of you watching. We are here. We're really going to make a very strong habit of coming in every Wednesday for our caffeinated change. It feels right for us. It helps us to process some stuff. It's a great way to connect with people. And we have so much going on that it's a nice moment to kind of just ground and
Debrief amongst us.
debrief. Hey, Dan, thanks for being here.
Hi, Dan. I thought it was too early for you.
True. So today, what we're going to talk about is how we're shifting our approach to client work in 2024 and who we want to be working with. We're going to mix up the approach to this because typically what happens is that Danny generally kind of takes on, good morning, Wissam. It's nice to see you here. Danny typically takes on a interviewer role without even realizing it. She's like, how do you feel about that? And so, uh, last night I actually organized some questions for us to move through, some of which we don't actually have answers for yet. But if you saw or saw our last live kind of scroll by, it was about the notion of the power of questions and spending time in questions and not necessarily rushing to answers. And I think there's some value in us processing out loud and using the space to let those of you who care to watch know that we are learning as we go. How do you feel about that?
I have no idea what's happening, so I'm just gonna ride with whatever you have planned.
Okay, amazing. So sometimes we start with a flume of awe, and because this is kind of like this is a live that's about the notion of shifting into more of a partnership mindset with our clients. I'd love for us to start with a flume of partnerships. So what does it mean for you to be in a really strong partnership? What is a partner? She likes it. She likes the first question.
It is a good question. But I'm like, I'm going to bring this back to my partner. I think the first thing that came to mind for me was the notion of trust. Mm-hmm. I think to be in partnership, in any kind of partnership, be it with us, be it an intimate partnership, be it in a client relationship, there needs to be a baseline foundation of trust that allows for the vulnerability, the intimacy, the conflict, the discomfort that naturally arises in partnerships to emerge and move through. So first and foremost, foundation of trust. And then there is collaboration. I think strong partnerships have this notion of reciprocity and mutuality. I do some of the work, you do some of the work. And I think, specifically speaking of the folks that we have worked with, this notion of we do some, but also you do some, that enables accountability. It also enables co-creation, and that whatever it is that we are building together is being built together and not one leading the other or guiding the other. That sets precedent for power dynamics. Yeah, I'm going to pause there.
You've said so much already.
Yeah.
So foundation of trust, the notion of collaboration, co-creation, the reciprocity, a sense of accountability to each other, this mutual kind of back and forth that is naturally understood when you say the word partners. Like there is not one person who's meant to carry more of the weight. Is a tiny cup of coffee. I didn't want to over caffeinate, but trust me, it's not my only one of the day.
Yeah, I was going to say this is our first one.
My notion of a strong partner is actually, okay, so this makes me think of, I'm sure I've told you this story already, but two of my friends got married a few years ago, and as part of their wedding gift, one of their friends interviewed all of us to talk about what their love had taught us. And in watching that video after it was made, someone said they create so much room for each other's ambiguity, which I love so much because these two have been together for 17 years. They're polyamorous. They're multi-hyphenate individuals who are constantly evolving. And like, aren't we all in so many ways evolving? And don't we all have that urge? You know, so for me, the notion of partnership is really about a recognition that no one is one fixed thing. And I think a healthy partnership is one that really invites the person in front of you to explore and to bring up what you don't know about them in a way that's loving and compassionate and curious, you know, and it's not about possession. It's really about this, like, what next? What next? What next for you? What next for you? Because every time there's like a what next for you, then there's a what next for us.
Yeah.
There's like this constant agility, and that's just,
I was going to say that what nextism, or that capacity for ambiguity in an intimate relationship translates, I think, in a or an intimate partnership translates in a business partnership or an organizational partnership as that agility and that perpetual iterativeness. Is that a word?
I think so.
The capacity to iterate.
Let's say it is.
And the ability to be ever evolving.
Yeah. Not defined. You are undefined. I am undefined. Where we're going is undefined. For me, that's where the joy is. And the reason we're talking about partnership right now is because we're shifting into this mindset in 2024, away from working with clients towards working with partners. Not to say that we won't be working with people who are clients, but we really want to be creating space, or we want to be intentional about our language, our approach, our language and our approach with the people that we work with, to set the tone from the very beginning that we are choosing to be in partnership with you. We are choosing to invest in this relationship with you. And in that, there's so much to gain for you and for us. And also there's an invitation for you to step into a dynamic that goes far beyond just being our clients and, paying us for some services. So yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, I think that, we've been exploring and talking about reimagining the language that we use that doesn't necessarily even sit well for me or for us, because it creates um, it creates what we consider as human relations to be transactional. So things like, or words like clients for us, for me, feels transactional. It
Yeah.
feels like you are paying us, and therefore, we are to do whatever you want us to do because you are paying us. Or things like sales, which my partner really helped me redefine when I was telling him that I was uncomfortable with sales and the notion of sales. And he told me, you're probably one of the best salespeople I know because all you do is build relationships. And so shifting from this mindset of selling our services to um, building relationships with people and centering the humanness and the human experience. So I think ultimately that
That's
shift
lovely.
in language is us really wanting to go back to centering human relations.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's based off of what we've learned over the last 2 years of being in business together, 2+ years, which I do want to get into. I want to talk about what have we been to, what have we been through, what have we learned about consulting? Is this too much?
It's a little bit much.
Because it feels awkward to have it down here. I'm just like,
imagine we're both like.
I do want to get into what we've learned that led us to this place. I love that you told me.
There's a very liberating feeling that comes with shifting from it's us and clients versus it's us versus and collaborators, which is a problem. It breaks the hierarchical. Yes, hierarchical dependencies is such a good way to frame it.
Yeah.
I'm totally taking that.
And Wissam as well, moving from what's next for you into how that becomes what's next for us.
Mm-hmm.
Just this curiosity of all of us kind of sitting on the same side of the table and looking at what's ahead of us. There's so much unknown. There's so much unknown that lies ahead for us globally. And therefore, such a need for us within our business decisions to make choices that aren't just the decisions that have been made in the past and that are just a perpetuation of what's been done and a perpetuation of these hierarchical dependencies and the perpetuation of resource use and abuse and like extraction and the notion of this power hoarding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to actively shift that in language and in behaviors. And so what do you think we've learned over the last 2 years what are some of your big learnings that have brought us to this place?
What are some of the learnings that have brought us to this place? Well, I think the first one that comes to mind for me, I can't believe I'm sitting. The irony of me sitting here at Concordia University, where I learned about this framework, and I would literally by the end of my degree, I was like, if someone tells me to trust the outcome, or trust the process rather, one more time, I swear my best friend and I were like, we couldn't stand that notion because all we had to do was write. For context, we specialized in organization development at Concordia, and it was always about trusting the process. Always. And so the irony of us sitting right now, we're in Concordia's building, and me saying, this notion of trusting the process when folks work with us, being one of them.
As in you want to bring it in?
As in I'm bringing it in.
Okay.
And I can't believe I'm bringing it in.
Okay.
And I'm thinking of my teacher who would probably laugh hysterically. But I think that's been a big learning for us in terms of wanting to reinforce that with clients. wanting to reinforce that there are periods of highs and periods of lows. There are periods where things emerge and periods where we're just asking the questions. There's periods of conflict and periods of resolution. And all of that, those waves are part of organization development and transformation. But the capacity to trust when you're in a period of low that a period of high will ensue is difficult to cultivate.
Mm-hmm.
And the capacity to trust when we're moving really slowly, because slowness is one of our, I'd say our ethos at this point, or whatever you want to define it, but it's something that we firmly believe in, that we constantly reiterate with our partners, that we are moving slow in the beginning in order to then be able to move fast. So I think that's been, I've mentioned kind of many little different ones that have brought us to this place, but this notion of really trusting the process and trusting us to hold you through the process has been a defining one for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Well, yes to everything you're saying. I want to just mention Dan's comment before we jump in. That hierarchical view is much more US centric. That collaborative we partnership is much more in line with the global viewpoint. That's great to read. I believe it's a necessary change for the true progress to be made. I love that.
Yeah. Is it US centric or is it Western centric? Genuine question, Dan.
Yeah. And while you think about that, some of the things that have led me to this place over the last 2 years, I'm saying me not because I separate myself from the company, but trying to answer through the I.
I hear you.
So when we first co-founded New Room in 2021, I was already saying, like, I'm tired of consulting. And I was already saying it to Danny. I was like, the consulting model, it tires me. And what I've realized is, like, it's not the work of consulting that tires me. It is the dynamic that exists in the traditional understanding of what consulting means, which is often
you have the answer.
Either that we have the answer or that we carry the fault if things don't go to a specific plan. I don't love the idea. I don't really stand behind the idea of, like, long-term planning. I think it's important to set vision. I think it's important to strategize and have everyone on the same page, but things are so unpredictable. I think what's more important is to create mechanisms for continuous check-ins and learning.
Yeah, feedback
as you go. But with traditional consulting, people expect that we're going to set the pace and a vision and a direction for an extended period of time. And then I find us with the weight of the like, quote unquote, deliverable on our shoulders in a way that just doesn't feel right anymore. It feels really
hierarchical dynamic-y.
It feels dated.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it's an attempt to bring about a solution to problems that aren't actually about creating a deliverable, but are more about, like, regular conversations and those mechanisms that I was just talking about. So a big thing for me is, like, how can we really, from the very beginning of our relationships, be clear that this is going to be an exchange that is grounded in slowness, founded in trust, that's going to have regular conversations and check-ins and learning cycles where we're going to evolve together. We're going to meet you where things are as things change. And the other thing that I'm thinking about is, like, we're teaching people about creating practices of belonging within their teams, and how belonging, practices of belonging are kind of like the antithesis let's just say, of the pillars of dominance, of supremacy, of hierarchy, of extraction, of that resource abuse, that all those things that we were talking about before. And what, like, the further we go into understanding systems of dominance and how those show up in our workplaces, the more I see those in the way that we work in the way that all of us work, so
Yeah.
like,
I think I don't want to lose your thought,
Yeah.
Dan, so I'm going to respond quickly because I also don't. It also brings me to, when hearing you think about this idea of us coming in with solutions, I think that this idea of the consultant as knowing what you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to do is ultimately false, because the folks who know what to do are the people who are leading this work on the front line, or whatever work it is on the front lines. And so a lot of our work ends up being, or what we believe to be the right way to do things, is emerging the themes that are coming from the team and letting those themes be what guides whatever solutions ensue. And this idea of co-creation, whereas right now we see, the consultant as, you come in and you tell us what to do, when really it's your team knows what to do. All you have to do is create space for the team to be able to name their needs and then take decisions accordingly.
And get patient and comfortable in the steps that are taken after, in which things will change and things will be uncomfortable and dynamics are going to shift and power is going to be redistributed.
Mm-hmm.
But to Dan's question, so regarding is it a US viewpoint, is it a Western viewpoint? In my experience in humanity work, it's considered US centric, but I see your point. And then I would challenge your notion about moving away from long-term planning, but it's a longer conversation that I need 40 ounces of coffee to have.
I'm really curious to hear about that.
I want to make a point about that, because I don't think that planning is necessarily a bad thing. It's just in the dynamic that I've experienced in New Room and outside of New Room, there's an expectation of the plan coming best from the consultant. And like, who does the plan actually come from? Whose voices are we valuing there? And
I also think that, we mentioned the importance of agility and iteration. It's like the plan is important. I agree the plans are important, but the plan can't be the be all end all. Because as we've seen with the pandemic, as we've seen with social uprising, as we've seen with the economic status of the world right now, the folks who had planned from 2018 to 2021, I am 100% sure that plan was thrown out the window. The folks who have planned from 2019 to 2023, out the window. So I think what we were mentioning earlier around the importance of having mechanisms in place that allow for review of the plan, iterations of the plan, feedback of the plan. Is this plan even reflective of the reality today? Is this plan reflective of our employee needs today, when it was created 3 years ago in a world where our realities were completely different?
Mm-hmm. So concretely, how do you think being in partnership with our clients, what is that going to look like? How is that going to change how we do what we do?
Good questions. Yeah, I love a good question. I think it'll strengthen our relationships with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will allow us to further our trust and really really prioritize how we do the work versus the outcome of the work.
Mm-hmm.
Like how we get to the end is just as important as getting to the end goal. And so I think our how is going to shift and transform. I think that our own personal boundaries will become less blurred.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be clearer for us and the people who want to work with us that we are for them and they are for us. I don't believe that we are for everybody. I don't believe that our approach is for everybody. And so I think that becoming clearer about, engaging in partnership or being in partnership will allow a more intentional two-way selection of we are choosing each other to do this work.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore engaging in a much more of a longer term relationship than a quickie one night stand. If I may say so.
Dan's coming in hot right now.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
So the focus, please hog our comments, please. So the focus of my work is building long-term sustainable solutions that are meant to disrupt the systems of oppression. If I don't plan long-term and look at how these mechanisms can be sustainable, then I'm just another white savior focused on Band-Aids.
I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that. And I think the question that comes up for me in regards to that is one that we had discussed last week around how do we hold the balance of, the slowness that's required for this work with the urgency and the pressing matters of our times, with the need for kind of sustainable thinking and reimagining more sustainable ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think so. One of the things that I'm hearing in that comment is I, which is one of the things that we're trying to challenge with our approach to consulting, which becomes less about us and more about, yes, $1 billion question, Danny, to your how do we balance the two. Less about us having the answers and more about the folks in front of us having the answers, and not the people who pay us having the answers, but the people who are impacted by the decisions and the work and the outputs of the organizations who pay us, and how they are the ones who have the answers for what comes next. And this is actually, it's you're scratching at something that has really disturbed me about consulting. And this was before New Room, but just the notion of like me as a white person coming into a consulting job, being paid a lot of money, doing a lot of, in my opinion, very like open-hearted, purpose-driven, impact conversation stuff with senior decision makers that for the most part were white. And it was like, let's do something good, and like pouring myself into these like, decision-making strategy sessions. And then you build the output, the strategy, the what have you. And then it just like doesn't go anywhere because there's no recognition, or there's no urge from those decision makers to give up any of their comfort, or to like be the ones who don't have the answers, or to allow someone else to take the mic, or like, just like there's no urge to like step aside, because they're like, and there's I'm not pointing my finger because I know everybody has the weight of whatever weight on their shoulders exists is real for that person. You know, maybe they have the board above them, they have financial pressure, with whatever pressure they're facing. It's just that model of consulting was just like, ugh, it just doesn't sit right. And it's like, so to Danny, to your point about like, this is not going to be about what we're working towards, but how we do it. Please point your fingers. I think the how we do it is going to be the fundamental shift to us choosing to use the word partners instead of clients.
Mm-hmm. And defining what partnership is, which is the first thing we started with.
Mm-hmm.
Wissam, what word would you choose to replace the word client, partner?
Yeah.
That's what we've been chatting about.
Yeah. So, and we're thinking, you know, we have a client onboarding process right now that includes talking about slowness, ensuring we're building trust. We want the team to know who we are, to understand
Partner
why we're there.
onboarding process.
A partner onboarding process. But it was a client onboarding process in 2023.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And what we're going to do is expand that out so that there's really a mutual understanding of what it means to be in partnership with each other, more of a manifesto, more of an understanding of the shared kind of risks or potential hiccups that could happen along the way, which I think is just going to set the tone for all the things that you mentioned before about, you know, this being a way for us to build more trust, to have stronger relationships with folks, to be able to be more agile with them. Yeah. You ready for the next question?
There's another one? Oh, wow. I was like, this is longer than we had planned. Yes.
It's only 30 minutes right now.
Is it? Wow. Okay, let's go.
It's because we're in the hot seat because these questions are more kind of pointed than they usually are. Okay. You ready?
Ready.
What are we absolutely going to say no to?
Oh. What are we absolutely going to say no to?
Dan, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much for engaging.
Yeah, it really means a lot.
Absolutely no to rushing the process. That's one thing that every time we cave into and we end up, you know, having to succumb to by nature of our work always feels off. And rushed and just not aligned with how we do things. And I think for me personally, I'm someone who I need to move and pace through things, and working outside of that pace always feels a little bit challenging. So I think absolutely no to rushing the process. Absolutely no to folks who aren't willing and able, for whatever reason, to commit to some level of I don't want to say depth, but I think superficial or performative change. Yeah, period.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one, which, you know, we're working on right now, but I think absolutely no to negotiating our prices and the value of our work, especially for the organizations who have the annual budget to compensate us for that. Because I think that we believe in the value of our work. We know how much it can transform a culture. We know how much the folks who have worked with us have enjoyed and reaped the benefits of our support. And we also want to be able to leave space for whatever negotiations, financial negotiations, to take place, to happen with the folks who really, operate from an operational perspective, cannot afford our regular rate.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my top three.
Wow,
Rushing.
you did a good job.
What was my second one?
Absolutely no to like superfish people who don't want to kind of go into the depth of what's going on.
Right. And then financial negotiations.
Yeah. It's a really tough question. I didn't think of my answers for any of these beforehand. I
hope folks don't hear
the grinding. There's some sort of construction going on above us, which is essentially the sound in my brain right now as I think about what is your absolute no. I agree with yours. And I feel like maybe, I want to let people in a little bit on the process that led us to this place at the end of last year, or for the second half of last year. We worked with a business therapist for the two of us, which was really profound, who helped us to name some of those mindset shifts that we want to bring into 2024. One of the big ones being shifting from client to partner. And the other thing is that we hired a CFO. Thanks, Wissam. We hired a CFO.
Virtual CFO.
Virtual CFO. Thank you. Who helped us to solidify our pricing model in a way that allows for tiers of pricing based on amount of revenue that the people that we're working with are generating. So to Danny's point about not negotiating, we'll have a redistribution price point for folks who have the funds so that we can support the organizations who need the support, who do not have the funds, but who are doing incredible, important, impactful work.
Mine is still not bad.
Yeah, what would you prefer?
You're good.
Okay. And so one of the things that we're going to do to make those early discussions easier and to give people a lot of clarity and transparency around why we've made the decisions we've made and what it's like to work with us, et cetera, and how ready they need to be and all that stuff is we're actually going to be integrating more of an assessment, or not an assessment, intake application form for people who want to work with us so that right off the bat, they can get a sense of who we are, what kind of language we use, how ready they are, what they need to do in order to be ready. And even that, I think, is going to eliminate some of those absolutely no's.
Yeah. And I think, absolute no's for us, but again, absolute no's for, well, maybe there's a timeline here, for folks who are looking for support. Because again, we may not be for everyone. And I think we want our approach from the get-go to be clear for folks to know whether they want to or can commit to the way that we work, because it is a commitment. And so I think that intake form from the get-go will really allow that filtering process, that mutual filtering process, to occur, so that those who we do end up working with, we know are ready and able and willing, and we are excited and feeling good about. So who do you want to magnetize towards us? Who do we want to magnetize towards us in 2024? I think, based on our early conversations that we're having right now, with different partners is folks doing mission-driven work. Mission-driven being folks who are either doing some form of work in community, some foundation work, some charitable work, some social impact work. I think folks who are really committed to inclusive futures, and thinking about the legacy that they want to have, thinking about the communities that they want to be engaging with more intentionally. Yeah, I think in general, folks who are tired of just the status quo and the old ways of doing things, and are know that there's a better way, know that they want to drive change in their culture, and just need some guidance and support to get there.
Love all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to add to that?
Sure. One of my first questions, which I skipped over, was I was going to ask you, what do we do in a sentence? Because it's a question that we've been having a hard time formulating, because we, do work in belonging and relationship building, and we help people have difficult conversations, and we consult in organizational transformation, and we build learning and development programs for the people who are moving through phases of transformation. So there's like a lot wrapped up in that. But I think the way that our consulting arm and our programs arm really overlaps is the people that we partner with regards to our consulting, they have a desire to empower the people that they work with. They have a desire for learning and evolving and bettering the environments and kind of the skill sets of everyone on their team. So there's like, rather than having a desire to make a decision or to set a strategic objective, they have a desire for collective learning and collective advancement. So when we're doing our consulting work, and the people that I hope we magnetize to us, and the ones actually who've come to us over the last year, they're folks who are thinking about like, how do we teach this? What more do we need to learn? What skills are we going to need for the next 2 years of uncertainty? How do we face change as more of a collaborative, co-creative group? How to create more space to learn from each other. So there's like this underlying desire for learning, which I love, because I think if decision makers have a mindset of, I have things to learn and I don't have all the answers, that already says so much about the mindset that they bring to their teams, and the fact that they don't expect people to have all the answers. They expect people to want to learn as they go.
Thank you. Those are great questions. Those are great questions.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, those are great questions. And thank you to Dan and Miss Sam for engaging.
Yeah, and Stan was up there as well.
Stan, yeah. And for those who will be watching afterwards, thank you to the folks and the partners who have trusted us over the last 2 years, and the partners who trust us currently, and the ones who are looking for support and guidance and facilitation and strategic planning and all the yummy stuff. We are welcoming you and inviting you to reach out. And we're looking forward to an intentional, grounded, impactful year, both together and with whomever we partner with.
Should we say something about the seed?
Sure. I feel like you never know. Go ahead.
So the seed is our first online program, which is open to individuals and teams This is a training program that we've offered to companies individually, but not open to like a collective of people who could learn together. This is a program that's running March 4th to April 4th. It is our foundational program of belonging, centered in the principles of inclusion, diversity, equity, access, and social impact, in which folks are able to learn about how to create cultures of belonging, how to imagine systems of the future, the structures of the future. Folks are guided through understanding how the current dominant systems shape their perspective and perception of self, their perspective and perception of others. Anyways, it's a beautiful program.
Beautiful program.
Yeah, and it's part of our longer term vision of having this library of social change content, which serves individuals who want to engage in social change, but also serves those partners that we're going to be working with who need those skills as well throughout their organizations as they're planning and leaning into change, leaning into transformation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have the urge to say, I love you. Take care of yourselves.
Especially in these times.
Yeah. Yeah.
See you next week.
See you next week. Wednesday morning at 9:30-ish. Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye. That was